Hello, dear aspirants. Welcome to today's explainer right here at Rungta IAS Academy. I'm Professor A, and joining me today is Professor B. Look, if you're tracking the current economic discourse, you know the vision of Viksit Bharat is absolutely central to your preparation right now. Today, we're decoding the structural constraints to this vision, specifically targeting your General Studies Paper 3 Economy syllabus.
Welcome, students. Let me be clear, this isn't just high-level theory. We're getting to some hard-hitting analysis today. We're breaking down those high-yield concepts that literally elevate your mains answers, from just average to truly excellent. Let's get right to it.
To really ground our discussion, here is our mains question of the day. Examine the structural constraints in India's path to Viksit Bharat, particularly analyzing the impact of zombie firms. This is a classic 15-mark, 250-word format. By the end of this session, you're going to have the exact framework, the right keywords, and the hard data points to write a top-tier answer.
Absolutely. It's a highly probable area for your upcoming exams. So let's dive straight into the core issue that's holding back this structural transformation.
Right, so the root of our structural constraint really lies in a skewed transformation. While services have obviously driven our recent economic growth, manufacturing simply hasn't expanded enough to pull surplus labor out of low-productivity agriculture.
And that is the ultimate crux of the matter. If you look at successful developmental models globally, manufacturing acts as this critical bridge. It connects low-productivity agriculture to high-productivity modern sectors. Without this bridge, our growth pattern risks becoming structurally unstable over the long haul.
Now, the reason our manufacturing actually lags becomes crystal clear when we look at firm structure. When you contrast India with successful East Asian economies, it reveals a pretty stark difference. India's landscape is heavily dominated by a massive number of small, low-productivity firms. We have very few mid-sized firms that are actually capable of scaling up.
Precisely. East Asia successfully industrialized by nurturing a strong cohort of medium and large firms that aggressively drove exports in productivity. But our current structure, it traps labor and leads to massive efficiency gaps. And this happens despite the huge infrastructure investments we're currently seeing.
Okay, so this brings us to a really vital keyword for your mains introduction, zombie firms. Kindly note this definition for your conceptual clarity. These are inefficient firms that are no longer economically viable, but they just continue to operate. They tie up precious capital and labor that could, frankly, be deployed much more productively elsewhere.
In economic theory, we study this concept of creative destruction. It's the healthy, natural process when new, efficient firms replace older, less productive ones. But in India, this process is painfully sluggish. Aspirants, if you can link this lack of creative destruction with zombie firms in your answer, it will surely fetch you that extra edge with the examiner.
Let's actually dissect the anatomy of this problem. Zombification isn't an overnight event, right? It's a gradual deterioration that starts way before a firm is officially classified as a zombie.
Exactly. And the truly alarming data point here is that while they represent a relatively small share of total firms, they account for a disproportionately massive share of total debt and assets. They lock significant capital into low-productivity uses. And honestly, once they're in this state, they show almost zero recovery in their core performance indicators. It's a chronic problem, not a cyclical one.
Crucially, you need to understand that the very nature of a firm's financing dictates its fate, and this distinction is absolute gold for the body of your mains answer. Bank-financed firms have a significantly higher likelihood of becoming zombies. They stay in distress longer, and they often relapse even after a partial recovery.
Right, and in sharp contrast, equity finance firms are far less prone to this trap and they recover much more sustainably. This strongly indicates that our heavy reliance on traditional bank debt for corporate financing is actively feeding this whole zombification cycle. Write that down because it's a brilliant analytical point for your GS3 papers.
Building on that, we really have to acknowledge a hidden drag in our system, our institutional structures. Current financial and regulatory frameworks often just end up sustaining these inefficient firms, rather than facilitating a clean, necessary exit. The collateral damage here is just immense. By keeping unviable firms on life support, we effectively crowd out credit from the truly productive firms that desperately need those funds to scale. It completely undermines our national productivity growth.
So how do we effectively conclude our mains answer? Well, you need a pragmatic, forward-looking way forward. The ideal approach here is a two-pronged strategy. First, India absolutely must achieve scale. That means expanding manufacturing, integrating deeply into global value chains, and relentlessly boosting research and development. Absolutely. But scale alone isn't enough, is it? The second prong is ensuring efficiency. And this means taking the tough decisions. We have to simplify regulations and aggressively strengthen our insolvency processes. We really must carefully balance the push for massive infrastructure with a robust system that allows inefficient firms to gracefully exit the market. Professor B, to wrap up today's explainer, I want you to consider this critical question. Growth has laid the foundation, but can India actually sustain its leap to Viksit Bharat by allowing inefficient firms to exit? Professor A, dear aspirants, I want you to treat this as a highly probable prompt for your UPSC personality test. The interview board really wants to see if you can critically balance those headline growth numbers against the painful necessity of creative destruction. Think deeply about this one. Thank you so much for joining us at Rungta IAS Academy today. Keep revising, stay focused, and we wish you the very best in your preparation.